it's Dale here. A few people this week have asked me about silk rods, silk carrier rods, and I've talked about them before, but obviously it doesn't matter to do it again. There's always things to discover. Now, I've explained many times that my silk carrier rods, look, this is my bag. They look pretty grotty, and sometimes I pulled them apart and they're not all hard, because sometimes you get them and they're nice and firm like tree trunks like this one here, and it's quite hard. And I have said before, so repeating a story, when I first bought them I asked somebody what you do with them, and she said, oh, you need tree trunks on your work. And I did think about it that day and think, well, how many tree trunks would one put on one's work? Anyway, they come in bits and pieces, and they look grotty, but they when they spin the silk, they grasp hold of a rod just beside it. I've seen it done, and so I suppose that's why they're called rods, and they peel them off when they get too thick. So here's quite a fat one, and what I would do with it, sometimes you might wet it, but if I just simply iron it, then it will go flat. And then I had somebody once, a supplier unmentioned, who sold me she would sell me silk flats, and they were different from silk rods. Being a bit naive way back then, I semi-agreed. Of course, they're twice the price of the rods, but you know how it goes, and we're all smarter now. But when you've got them like this, you can peel so many layers off, and I know I've showed this before. And then, as you know, and then you can pull them out, so you could be spinning it, spin out, and actually spin a big piece for yourself just by sitting, manipulating away. You know how when you're watching television, just doing things like that while your partner's snoring on the sofa. But then you know, and I've said this before, that if you wet them and iron them together, they will adhere to each other. So haven't got as much gum in as the strippings have, but if you put them between two layers of Glad wrap and baking paper, baking parchment, and spray them with water, and then iron them, the steam and the water will adhere them together. And so they won't stick together like this, because I'm not applying water, but I just want to iron them a bit flat. And these have been stuck together before, but they're a bit loose. Now, what I've always said was, if they don't work properly, it's not the end of the world. You can stitch them, or you can add cocoon strippings in, because they have lots of sericin, and these don't always have as much as you imagine. But they dye beautifully, and here's some dyed ones. Exactly the same, and I can iron them flat. These are really fat and thick, so there's lots and lots of layers, and I believe that they're hard to dye because it gets hard to get the dye into there. And of course I don't dye them, but I do spray them with my spray colours, but Jacinta dyes them. And what I've done, just quickly to show you, this is three of them, three together, and I have put them onto a rubber stamp, a moulding mat, which has got glue on it, and then paint on it, and then I've just bonded it again with the heat, with the Glad bake over it. So you've got an impression, and you've got these which you've got a slight overlap, which makes them sort of interesting. And I've used them in lots of ways. I use them as framing. They make really good frames with the shape of them. And I've just woven a few up here for no reason. And what I've shown, I've shown these before, I have put hand-dyed ones down and bonded them to a piece of craft violin. In this case, doesn't matter what you put them on. You could use a fusible webbing, or you could just lay them down and stitch them. And this one, here's another one where I put it onto craft violin, and you can see my stitching, and put them on, and they were white, and I've sort of covered them with a bit of colour and mucked around there. Now, they're really great to use like for in garments, because they're washable. They're silk, depends what you put it back onto. Lovely for bags, book covers, anything like that. The silk rods are just so gorgeous. And you can dye your own. We sell undyed, or you can buy them in bags of dyed ones and use them, but just realizing you can pull away several layers. And remember, you can also roll them up. I've just got here they are, and make lovely roses. These are, piece of my Paris roses. So I've just rolled them up and beaded them, cut them, rolled them, and then sliced them up actually with the knife and just put them back onto here. And finally, quite exciting, is like what I've done here is I have bonded them to, these ones have been bonded to some interfacing, or like, you know, like craft filing sort of thing that I have, and then I printed on them. Always, you know, through the inkjet printer, and you've got the fix. I think it was a bit dirty, grubby there, but this one here, I have bonded them to fusible webbing, to Fix, and that's on the background, so the sticky is there. And then I printed it out, through the inkjet with one of my photos. And then what I can do is I can peel this off and then bond this to a piece of felt or backing or whatever you're using, whatever work you're doing. So they work really well that way. So that, you know, if you haven't seen the idea, yes, don't forget, that's me and the Thread Studio, and we have all of these fibres. I love using them. I probably know just about more about them than most people. So hope that's been useful, especially to the few people who asked me to tell them all again about the silk rods. And I'll see you again another time. Bye.